right, so after the end of this episode, I spoke to Tim Stoddard over at Showcase Comic Books and Collectibles, and they're going to be sponsoring future episodes of Art Convos. So I want you to remember, right now is a rough time. It's a rough time for all businesses, but the comic book industry in particular is struggling and may not survive. Your local comic shops won't survive without your patronage. If you have the ability, and look, you're sitting at home alone, maybe you've got kids. If you have kids, this is a perfect time to really foster a love of reading. And trust me, comic books will make your kids love reading. So reach out to your local comic shop. In particular, I'm talking about Showcase Comic-Con. Showcase Comic Books and Collectibles. They have Showcase Comic-Con, their own comic book convention. The last one was in February, I believe. And they're supposed to have one in September. Hopefully, when this will be all over soon, and we'll be able to get back to normal. But you can also find them on Facebook. Easy peasy. Just look for Showcase Comic Books and Collectibles. And you can buy things online. They've got an online store. And you can message them if you're looking to buy things. Hey, reach out, help out. We're all going to depend on each other. Thank you. And I hope you enjoyed this episode of Art Convos talking about Darwyn Cooke. I certainly did. All right. Boom goes the dynamite, Travis Hemo.
We're back! Waiting.
I don't know.
waiting for this.
I'm not very good at intros.
I'm well aware.
Thanks. What's up?
Not much, man. What's going on with you today?
I'm alright. I noticed...
Like you just finished working out, pumping some iron, huh?
Yeah, I definitely look like I work out, don't I?
Yeah. Oh, man, you're just rippling with something.
I'm pretty much the brown version of Ethan Suplee, if you know who that is.
No.
He was in Boy Meets World. He was in Mallrats.
Yeah. That's disrespectful to Ethan.
Okay. Anyway, I see you're representing Gnarly Barley there.
Yeah. It's wonderful. Actually, I picked it up last time I was in town with you. We went there to go talk to the manager and hang out for a bit, and I ended up drinking a little too much and buying this hat.
Appreciate it if you're in the, I guess, well, it's really anywhere in Louisiana. Yeah. You can get Gnarly Barley products.
Yeah, really great people. I actually know for a fact, because I'm on their email list, that they are doing to-go stuff right now. They're still technically open. They're still making their beer and everything. But they are, the brewery itself, if you go to visit there, they're just doing to-go orders.
Because of he who shall not be named?
Yes.
The Lou Reed disease?
The Baltimore virus, yes.
But, so what we're here to do today, we're going to do this a little different than last time, but we're doing Art Convos Episode 2. This time we're not going to, well, there will be 2 books, but we're not reviewing 2 art books. We're going to be discussing the art of Darwyn Cooke. What was the name of the book itself, Travis?
It's called Graphic Ink, the DC Art of Darwyn Cooke.
Right on. And I will be recommending a book at the end of this. But we're trying to keep this a little shorter than they've been. Yeah. It's probably not going to be that much shorter, but we'll see. So let's get started. So we're not starting with the cover because you really liked this panel and you wanted to talk about it a little bit.
It's actually a cover, if I'm not mistaken. So towards the back of the book, they place a bunch of covers he did, and for some reason I just really like this. There's so much going on in it, and I love the way he draws Batman and Superman, especially like a vintage look for Batman and Superman. And I just think it captures it well. And you're going to see some of the images that I sent. He had some Batman the Animated Series work as well, and it kind of carried over to this. Very similar to Bruce Timm, that Jack Kirby kind of style with the way he draws anatomy.
I think I mean, I'm not an expert on this era, but I think Darwyn Cooke was more influenced by Will Eisner.
Yeah.
But obviously there's some similarities. And yes, there's definitely some similarities to Bruce Timm, although Bruce Timm goes for a more simplified look. Darwyn Cooke's not afraid to go for really complicated stuff. And,
so when you say Will Eisner, by the way, I see Will Eisner more in his page compositions than his actual artwork.
Okay.
Like the way he actually draws, just the way if you look at the limbs and everything, the way he draws it's them how blocky they are. So it's a lot different than Eisner. Eisner was a little bit, I guess, looser. Might be the right
well,
term.
he's not a copycat.
Cartoony in terms of or exaggerated facial expressions and stuff.
He's not
more simplistic.
He's not a copycat. I mean, but neither is Bruce Timm. Like Bruce Timm's art is instantly recognizable as is Jack Kirby's, but they're not one and the same. You can just see the influence. Same with, Brian Stelfreeze. We were talking about, I think, 2 days ago. Brian Stelfreeze is clearly an acolyte of Jack Kirby, but the art isn't the same. It's just you can see some of the line work is similar, some of the, compositions, things like that. I do like.
Go ahead.
I do like. I'm assuming the bust in the back is a reference to the Adam West Batman. Wasn't that how Adam West accessed the Batcave? Was like there was a little bust.
Yeah, you flip the statue head. There was a red button.
I'm assuming that's a reference to that. Anyway, cool scene. Interesting use of shadow here, and that's something that takes a lot of getting used to when you start drawing as a kid. No one thinks about the shadows, and there's an entire lesson that you have to learn as perspective of horizons, like the direction of light. When you're learning how to draw professionally, that comes into play.
Yeah, your eyes eventually drawn to Bruce leaning far back into the chair and looking exhausted. You kind of just zoom right into that, and you kind of take everything else in.
So we're gonna move on to the. So you were telling me, so the first image, or the second image technically, is the actual book cover. We have the book jacket cover later.
Yeah. So I'm going to show it on camera. I hate doing this. So that's the
we have it.
book jacket.
I already have it later.
I know, but it's to talk about my gripe as brief as possible. It's I personally don't like dust jackets on books. They get dinged up, and this one is okay. I mean, I've only had this for about 4 years, and it's mostly been on a shelf, and it's been through a couple moves with me. And it's already looking pretty dinged up. I just don't like that. And as cool as that Batman and the Justice League look, I would have loved if the hardcover was just the book jacket image, which is the Jimmy's Diner, which again we'll look at again at the end of this.
Cool story, nerd.
That was it. Whatever, man. I'm sure other people would be like, yeah, I would rather not a dinged up piece of paper wrapped over my nice hardcover book.
Alright, well, are you done complaining?
Yeah.
So, the undercover, the interesting thing about Darwyn Cooke is he does like to mix different eras. Here, like that previous Batman image, there was clearly an iPad there. There was various other things that indicate, more modern things, but his general style he goes for a retro aesthetic.
Yeah.
So it's very modern retro in a combination of different eras. So here we see a few different, so you have Golden Age versions of characters, the original Green Arrow costume, Wonder Woman, original Batman, except for no purple gloves, Martian Manhunter, all that stuff. But then you also see Snapper Carr, you see Barry Allen, and some Silver Age stuff, Silver Age Adam. So it's a little bit of a bunch of things. Oh, and I think it says Justice League in the back as opposed to... No, wait. Maybe it doesn't. So that's a T. I don't know, but that's Snapper Car.
You can see he's doing a little snap. You see the little...
yeah, it's clearly... That's the tip-off that it's Snapper Car. And if you don't know who Snapper Car is, don't be bothered. You don't need to. It's a pretty old character that no one cares about. He was the Rick Jones of DC, and he was cool because he would snap his fingers.
Oh yeah.
I don't know. This isn't a great cover, to be honest with you. It's very.
That's what I told you. I took it mostly because it's like I was telling you. I wish the jacket cover was this hard cover.
And, honestly, looking at it, I wonder if this was even intended to be a cover or if the editors decided to put it in, because Darwyn Cooke would have given more thought to trade dress. Like, there's clearly nowhere to put...
It's cropped. Look, Martian Manhunter, I'm sorry, it's kind of cropped off. Now, granted, the photo I gave you is cut off, but if I'm going to show you the whole thing, you see a little bit more Martian Manhunter, but his cape is cut off. You have Black Canary in there, and you see her a little bit more. She's cut off.
Yeah, I noticed that you cut her off just so you could see her butt and her legs. So it's pretty sexist of you.
I mean, funny enough,
hashtag fishnets too. Travis email.
I'm gonna remember that for the end. I'll save something for you.
Okay. Was that a wink, or were you having a stroke? All right, let's go on to the next one.
So I'll give you a little bit of what this is. These are that's unpublished pencils for something called the Private Eye, which is part of the talent showcase. Remember the DC talent showcase?
Yeah.
Okay. So I think this was, if I'm not mistaken, I'm going to go back, hold on 1 second, just to make sure I have the right, number 19. So this is 85. This is his...
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So that's some of the first work he's done. And I purposely chose it because, one, I liked it, but it just shows how much he evolved, and once you get to drawing comics, and we've had this discussion before, is after a while when you start working, you really start to find your own style, and you get a lot better. This is good stuff. I mean, the rest of it, because they have a few more pages that are colored in after that page, and it's very, classic DC style, like a DC house style, I would say.
Fair enough. What's interesting to me, there's a couple things. So, these pages are good enough to get published. Yeah. Particularly considering this is his early work, and he was probably a pretty young guy when he did these. But you can definitely see, like, it doesn't even look like the same artist, except for certain hallmarks. Clearly, he was even then like a master of using shadow. The shadow. Now, you could argue about, we were talking about light sources, about if that really works for like the way the face drapes, but. Later on, when I talk about the book that I have, you'll see like he loves to use like shadows and light in that way. And if anything, the only thing that like needed improvement was like maybe his layouts a little bit.
Yeah, well, this is just the first page, and what's interesting is the pages after that. I mentioned Will Eisner and his compositions. You see a lot of that old school noir style in the way that, or the version of Wally Wood's panels that always work. You see like little touches of those types of panels and stuff that Will Eisner would do in terms of composition. So you can kind of get a feel where he's going. But definitely what you're seeing with the pencils right here in this piece, it really echoes that noir style that I think kind of followed him through a lot of his other work.
Just in case anyone's wondering, Wally Wood was an old artist that basically created this diagram or not diagram, but like lesson for artists, showing like if you're stuck on how to make a panel for a particular book. What was it? 12 panels or 22?
It's 22.
22 panels that always work. So he gives you examples of like all these panels. Like no matter what, if you draw it this way in this composition, it'll be an awesome panel. So
one other quick note too about this: if you look in the lower right, you see that other little panel. On the small inset of this page, they show you that's the actual published piece, and it's a lot different. It's just really him. It's kind of combining that top panel and that bottom panel, because all it is him standing over, holding a briefcase with a car going by. And this is the same car from the bottom panel. And it says the Private Eye. You can kind of see the red edge of it there.
Yeah. All right. Next one, way better than the cover.
Oh yeah, that's the interior, and actually, it's towards the end. It's going to be towards the end of the photos. You actually have one of all the villains that you saw. So that's actually the back. So what you're seeing right now is the front inside cover and the front first page.
Yeah. Gorgeous work.
I would have rather that be the wraparound to this.
Yeah, this would have worked a lot better. And but that, these all come down to editing decisions.
Yeah.
Darwyn Cooke didn't put this book together himself.
Oh, no. And this was still, I think this came out, I think I was telling you, this came out before he died, I believe.
So, as I said earlier, really mixing different eras here. You have Cyborg. I don't know who that is supposed to be with the ear. But
that's see, it's cut off too, but it's supposed to be Green Lantern.
Okay. 1980s Green Arrow back there. He really loves that Golden Age Batman though. Like he very much sticks with that. Same with the Martian Manhunter, Golden Age. Superman's a little more modern. Wonder Woman, looks like from certain inflections, that's a little bit more modern.
I love the way he draws Wonder Woman.
Very, very feminine. But not a lot to say about this, but gorgeous. And if you watched the previous video that we made about Spider-Man, I mentioned double page splash, and this is a double page splash. So a splash page would be one side, one page, full panel, and a double page splash is both panels connecting.
Yeah.
Now the next panel is a little more. It's a little sketchier than his typical style, but this is a little more of his typical style. It's much more noirish. A lot more use of shadows and playing with that. And this, it's really, that's where he shines. Like, don't get me wrong, I love that Justice League panel, but this kind of stuff is where he really, really shines.
Yeah. And what's really cool about it, just the way, kind of makes like a triangle and it pushes down like a downward pointing triangle in terms of how it's making you look down at Batman as the focal point. So you'll have everything above it. It's very heavy up the top of it because you have that person's face, the clock, and everything, and and I guess the fire steam from the chimney or whatever that is. But it really works. It pulls your focus just where you need it, and I really like the way it's colored too. Because sometimes I've seen some bad some bad coloring of his work. People like to go overboard with the rendering, and they really have to just keep it simple colors for his stuff.
But very cool, very cool. Really interesting the way he's blending a lot of the shadows. The way the cape sort of blends into the clock, the fire blends into her hair. And that's something that you mentioned the coloring, like he'd have to work with the colorist to get right, because that is something where the colorist could have gone too heavy to make the hair stand out more and all that.
Yeah, subtle is better for a style like his. It's a graphic style, and you really can't just go over render and add all those extra shadows and highlights like you would see in other modern comics.
All right, and then the next panel. This must be the Bruce Timm one that you were talking about.
Yeah, so I put this in one. It's kind of just a fun page, and I love what they did in here. And they actually put almost full stories or one pages, whatever he's done, that they could get their hands on. They put it throughout this book, which I love because you'll be flipping through and looking at art, and all of a sudden you'll have almost a full story or a full issue in this book. I mean, it's not a small book, as you can see how thick it is. So you have his art and you have these stories to enjoy as well. So I really like the Superman, the Adventures of Superman show, and I actually remembered seeing this this comic. I don't think I have it anymore, but I definitely remember it.
Yeah, he's going for a lot more cartooning here. Interestingly enough, I wouldn't even assume Bruce Timm, except for when you see Lois Lane, it's clearly the Timm homogenized DC animated universe style that you're seeing it play with the face. But he's doing
Toy Man already looked creepy, and then he looks creepier in that last panel with the bars, the shadow, the bars on top of them.
Well, like I said, Master of Shadow. Even on Superman, it doesn't work as well on Superman's face because it looks like he has a goatee, like it's the Darkest Timeline Superman. But what's interesting is you can. You just got that, huh?
Yeah, it took a second.
But he's definitely doing a lot more cartooning here, and when you're drawing, how much do you think about like shifting your style? Do you just do what you do naturally, or do you ever try to shift your style a little bit for a specific project?
I've only just recently shifted style for something that was for Arc World to be a little bit more realistic, because I usually exaggerate things, exaggerate poses, and I even had editorial comments from Josh on that book is to turn down some of the poses were a little too extreme in terms of if there was a punch thrown, it would be a really arched punch. He's like, no, don't worry about that. Just scale it back 10%.
And that is a big difference between working for yourself and working for a major publisher. Is house rules. You don't get to do whatever you want. If they say you need to switch this up, you have to listen.
So it's funny, and this is gonna be. I'll make this brief. I saw an artist complaining the other day in one of these creator groups that the person was saying that they were getting good feedback on their portfolio, and they have more of a manga style. But they were upset when they heard it's like, can you do anything other than manga? And this person was really upset about that. And I don't want to name or anything like that, but you have to
Carol
kind of
Baskin?
be agile. Huh?
Carol Baskin?
Yeah, Carol Baskin. But you have to kind of be agile, and you don't have to fully deviate from your style. And kind of with Darwyn here, he does alternate a little bit from this style. And I think it's not the next page, but when we get to All-Star Western stuff, his line work is a lot, it's not as thick. You don't see a lot of that same cartoony lines like you see in this versus what you'll see in the All-Star Western pages that I shared in here as well. But what I'm saying is you should have some kind of flexibility, especially if you're working for a company that's licensed product or it's big two stuff. You have to be a little bit flexible.
So the next page is looks like obviously it's Batman. Is this from a regular comic or is that?
It's from I can get you the specific one for that. Hold on, because I have the page right here. It's Gotham Knights is where it was from.
Interestingly, it's black. Well, it's technically grayscale, right?
Yeah, but I did this just because one, I love that middle panel, and two, I love the use of like the graphite in there with the shading, and it's so striking, especially that middle panel, because the hair isn't really rendered and it's left mostly white, and it just pulls your attention. Obviously, the thing you're supposed to pay attention to the most is the biggest panel on the page usually. And it just does it successfully, I think, in terms of composition because of that, leaving that the hair like that, and also how striking that the rendering is on their eye, whatever that scar is.
So you'll see a lot more of this when we talk about the book that I'm recommending, The Hunter. But what's interesting about playing with like light and shadow in this way is, and this only, well, with light, this only works with black and white or grayscale, but it's not always about what you draw. Sometimes it's about what you don't draw. Like, so he's like with the hair, he's not really drawing the hair. He's drawing the space around the hair, and then there's a couple of like shadow marks to give a little bit of definition, but it's not always about what you're drawing. Sometimes it's about what you're not drawing.
Yeah.
And that goes for, like, if you look in that third to last panel, there's a lot of blacks there, and he's not necessarily drawing the blacks. He's mostly drawing like the little shades of light that give the blacks definition. This sounds a lot more racial than I'm intending. I do want to point out, like, you can see a little bit of the Wallywood panel stuff. Like, again, like, for the casual audience member, you might not know what that is, but you can look it up. Wallywood's 22 panels that always work. And you can see a little bit of that here in the top bar.
Oh, yeah.
And then
top two and the third. Actually, the panels 2, 3, and 4 are all examples of it. So you have the two-shot, and then you have the close-up on Batman, and then even at the last panel at the bottom is an example of what he would use for death in a panel.
I think the panel above that as well has some little bit of that Wallywood in there. Okay, next one is this the last? Must be the last page of a script, but this is clearly Golden Age Superman, Golden Age Wonder Woman, and Golden Age Batman.
This is from New Frontier. It's an annual that they had.
So this would have been around 2000,
mid-2000s. Yeah,
something like that. Gorgeous work.
It's that Wonder Woman, man. I was telling you earlier how much I love the way he draws Wonder Woman. And there's something about her that, as powerful as she still looks, she's like he was still able to still make her beautiful. Because sometimes when you have, like, I've seen some people when they try and draw her more, not I don't want to say masculine, but like a more of a tougher build or a blockier build, she doesn't look as beautiful as she should, I think.
Right. He also took a lot of effort there on her hair to give her a 1940s style hairdo. Not a lot to say.
He also accomplishes what her looking so beautiful too. Is he doesn't even put that much detail to the faces. The way he renders that hair you were just talking about is perfect.
Also, again, pointing out, like, learning how to use how shadows fall based on how the direction of the light and all that. A lot of artists wouldn't even put their shadows on that rock. Yeah. It's not really necessary to your imagination because it's not something you think about, but it's there because he knows what he's doing and he knows that's how it would look to a degree.
Yeah. You also got Superman. He's covering it up. He's got the Fleischer Superman S on his chest. It was like that design with the red S and the black.
Yeah. And also, like, full Superman strongman trunks.
Yeah.
All right.
Very gothic.
Next panel is like a bunch of different stuff showing a bunch of different styles for him. I'm loving that Zatanna sketch.
Yes. I thought you were going to like that. I actually took took this one on purpose because I knew you would actually like this page.
I'm really curious. I mean, is that watercolors that he's using there?
That's what I would guess.
It looks like some markers for the blacks. But yeah, I mean, ooh, and same thing. Like, look at what he's not drawing here, you know, and also especially with like if this, I don't know if this is watercolors. I'm assuming it is, but you know, when you're a kid, they tell you like, oh, you got to coincide the lines, but and you have to learn the rules before you can break them.
Yeah.
But there's plenty, like the watercolors aren't sharp enough to where you can get them exact. But even where it's coloring outside of the lines, it's done so well that, like, you know, like if you look at the top of her magician's cap, there's parts of it that he doesn't even bother with the blacks, but it really works for the overall piece. I love that. Also loving the I'm just noticing the Joker's wearing an I'm Rick James bitch t-shirt.
Yeah.
That's, and this is a bunch of different art styles for him. The funny pages thing in the top is much more cartoony. Same thing with whatever angling with Angel and the Ape. And then it gets a little more realistic at kind of as you go down. That's clearly a DC Animated Universe piece, The Funny Mooners. Oh, I get it. It's not funny, but and then you get to the closer to the bottom, and you're seeing like a more realistic style.
Yeah.
It's hard to be that. You know, you were talking about you got to be flexible in your art style. It's hard to be that flexible.
Well, that was kind of the theme. You'll see in the next one is very much the theme is he pulls back a little bit. He still has you still know it's him, but you can tell when he pulls back some to fit the story or fit the tone of what the work should be.
I really wish I had a poster of that Zatanna piece. That is gorgeous.
I knew you would honestly like that. That's one of the reasons I took that photo.
He's not guessing that. It's not like I'm the hugest Zatanna fan. I mean, I'm fine with the character. It's just
a guess that you would like that.
So we are moving on, and yeah, this is a completely different art style. His line work changes quite a bit for this.
Yeah. So this is a piece for All Star Western. And you can see he's using these ink washes, and the ink washes are even setting the tone.
Can you explain what an ink wash is?
What was that?
Can you explain what an ink wash is?
It's basically when you're still using ink and brush, but you're watering down the ink. It's almost like watercolor, but it's going to be a lot more muted. I don't know how they were doing, how he was doing the reds. If that was like a sepia tone, which is like a brownish tone instead of black. I don't know how that was done exactly, but he does an amazing job on this. You know, the contour lines are a lot thinner. There's a lot more detail in the clothing if you look at how rugged it's rendered to be.
And it looks like he's taken a little bit from like a Jeff Darrow or a Frank Quitely in some of the line work here. And again, it's hard. Like you fall into a rhythm as an artist, you know, especially as you're growing, and breaking those habits to change your style, like especially this much for a project. It's not easy.
Yeah.
But this is a gorgeous piece. Is this supposed to be? No, it can't be. I was thinking it was Jonah Hex. But it can't be.
He's definitely done Jonah Hex, and Jonah Hex is in here. There's there's multiple stories with Jonah Hex in here.
But yeah, the face isn't ugly enough.
Yeah. I didn't want to keep I wish I would have actually took some more photos from those.
No, we got plenty. So what's interesting about the next page is, and bear in mind when I say, oh, that is Jonah Hex. Oh no, he's talking about Jonah Hex. Gotcha. Whenever I say things like what I'm about to say, I'm not saying like this artist is copying that artist style. Artists are influenced by other artists.
Yeah.
Both in the past and modern, like you learn from other people. And when I saw this, I instantly thought of Mark Buckingham.
Okay, I can see that.
But yeah, and this must be from the same book, I assume.
Yeah, there are a lot of them that run. Maybe there might be a few issues apart, but the way the book is made up, a lot of times it's in sections. So there's one portion of the book that's like all-star Western stuff. Like the first half was a lot of Batman stuff, and like got Batman, Gotham Knights, and Catwoman all in order. But going back to this piece, what I love, and I've been playing around with brush pens lately, with the way this is inked. I'm not sure if he inked this piece for sure, but the way the wolf's fur is rendered is very, very cool in my opinion. And you saw a recent piece I did for a variant cover for Art World, and there's a character in it that's like this giant sloth. And to do the fur, I was using a brush pen, and I kind of have more respect for inkers now, seeing them actually do like all the line work for fur. It's a lot harder than it looks.
Yeah, animals can be very difficult.
Yeah.
Let's move on to the next one. Batman Beyond. Clearly, this is a cover, and it's the thing about comic books is like, so is the anatomy perspective perfect here? No, but it takes a lot to make something dynamic and make something work on this level.
Yeah, honest to God, isn't that a cool cover though? Like,
it's a fantastic cover.
It's like, why would you not pick that up?
It's probably better than the art that was in the book, to tell you the truth.
Yeah, I'm not even sure who was doing those at the time.
And this is also going him shifting his art style once again back to the DC. I mean, it's still him, but it's the DC animated, and particularly the Kirby-esque, Bruce Timm-esque facial design.
Yeah. Oh, and just a note, because when we flip to the next page, apparently this is sent out of sequence because the next page is another all-star Western with Jonah Hex.
Oh, that's fine.
But just to go back to the other style for a second.
I'm just taking an extra second. I'm just trying. No, it's fine. I'm just trying to figure out like which villain is which. You got the I can't think of his name, but the first Batman Beyond villain up there, the guy with the radioactive body. You've got, I think it's Echo. I'm assuming some League of Assassins down there. I don't know about the gun.
Assassin character that I forget the name of the character, but she had this special sword that could chop through anything.
I don't remember.
She was this assassin. You have
ink. It's very subtle, but you have ink in the corner because it almost looks like Batman's cape, but it's not.
It's ink in a corner.
Anyway, but very cool. Really love this. Also, again, what it's not even recognizable as Darwyn Cooke, except for maybe the top panel. The top panel.
When you see her, the woman sleeping in panel 5, and I chose this for the style change, and 2, the way he composes the panels, the composition is great. And this is what reminds me of Eisner, especially when you go down to the 3rd row of panels, you have this the way
he's conveying motion.
Yeah. And it's something Eisner would do is to break up the amount of time an event's taking. So, clearly this is kind of happening. You see him lighting up. He's walking over to the bank. The way it is kind of almost like a build-up to him lighting that TNT.
Yeah. No, I love this page. This is really gorgeous work, and it's like you were talking about going to a more realistic style. This is not what you would expect to be in this artist's wheelhouse, and it's just beautiful.
I'm not sure who inked him or if he inked himself on this. I wouldn't be surprised if he used an inker, and maybe that was a big impact on it, because the way, if you look at the last panel, if you look at the beard, it almost looks like something I would see from 90s, one of these birds.
Well, I was gonna say the inking almost looks like Scott Williams, because the panel that's a side profile where you can see his collar where it says CS, that almost looks like a Jim Lee panel. The way the shadows are, the stubble.
That'd be interesting to know what it is, because it's still Darwyn. If you look again, panel 5, that's the same way he draws women that we already were talking about before.
So this is Jonah Hex, though?
Yeah, I think that's supposed. No, that's not Jonah Hex.
Okay, because I was gonna say, is this before he got?
Scar, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, the hat looks like Jonah Hex, but
I actually want to get those books. I can probably find them still.
Mm-hmm. So the next panel, unfortunately, I don't have a big image of, but it's what you were talking about earlier with the villain's inverse. And, I apologize to the audience. He's clearly having a lot more fun with the villains than he had with the heroes. Even though that was a great...
makes that, too. All one shade of red, different shades of red is what I'm trying to say, that was used for this.
And when I see stuff like this, it makes me want to talk more about the book that we're going to get to, because it all sort of adds up to what he eventually did on the Parker series. But I love this sort of madcap. What would you call? Who's the artist that did the Star Wars and the Indiana Jones posters and all that?
The Brothers Hildebrand. They did the Star Wars thing. It's Drew Struzan. Drew
Struzan. It's almost like a Drew Struzan kind of thing where it's not a logical layout, but it's the different images sort of blend into each other.
Oh, you're talking about the way he emerges, it's like those floating heads kind of all embled into.
But they're not just floating heads; they actually do feel like sort of stream of consciousness.
Yeah.
So then we get to the actual cover on the dust jacket that you hate, and it's clearly an homage to the famous L.A. Los Angeles painting. I don't remember who did the painting.
I mean, just take time, by the way, and just go through all the characters. Oh, here's the callback to fishnets. Look far left in front of the diner, and you see a pair of legs heading through it. It's Zatanna.
It is Zatanna.
What's some more fishnet action for you?
Yeah, Black Canary gets a little more dignity in this particular panel, but oddly, the only one it doesn't really fit is Harley Quinn. And this must have been after the New 52, because it's got the roller girl costume. But you got at the top, you have Batgirl, kind of almost imperceptible. Superman and Wonder Woman, Golden Age style. Jimmy Olsen, not James Olsen, but Jimmy Olsen, taking a picture of them. John Jones probably farting on a rooftop. Is that King Faraday? On the left?
Yeah, that's what I would. That's what I would guess. Also, if you look, there's a little guy in a green, an
army.
Like a zombie guy.
Yeah, I was wondering if that's a zombie or Sergeant Rock. It looks like a zombie, though.
Zombie
guy.
Silk Spectre in the front, because he did...
I'm sorry, I just noticed Green Arrow's giving the middle finger to Hal Jordan and Jon Stewart.
Holy crap, he is! I never noticed that.
And I guess that's what they're laughing at.
Yeah.
So you have the Spirit.
Or actually, hey, if you look by Joker real quick, you see it's Aquaman giving bunny ears behind the Joker.
Oh, yeah. Or he's saying peace.
Actually, man, there's so much going on in here because if you look above
the
Joker's head and you see the Hooded Justice, a frame photo
oh, yeah.
of Justice.
Yeah.
Holy,
why is Batman laughing?
Making drinks for everybody.
Yeah, that is Dr. Fate pouring drinks. What I'm wondering is the, Robin, that's Dick Grayson sitting on the corner. I'm wondering if that's supposed to be Wonder Woman in her mod outfit, or if that's somebody else specifically.
What are you talking about? Wonder Woman? Well, no, that's Silk Spectre.
Is that?
Yes.
Okay.
He did Watchmen. He did before Watchmen. He did the Minutemen.
Oh, okay. All right, that makes more sense.
I think he also. I don't know if he worked on Silk Spectre because I think that was Amanda Connor who drew that.
Yeah, Silk Spectre was a specific one, but no, you're probably right. No, I was just wondering if that was the mod era Wonder Woman.
Oh, and I can't think of the woman's name in the front, but it's the Spirit's longtime girlfriend, so it's the Spirit.
Yeah, I figured.
Spirit, in the front. Man, there's so much going on in that.
And I'm wondering if that wisp above Zatanna is supposed to be ink again.
I don't know if that's supposed to be some kind of magic thing, like that's when Zatanna's coming in. I'm not sure.
Could be either or, but I'm assuming it's ink. I don't know. But yeah, this is.
So why is Jimmy Olsen peeping on?
He's not peeping. He's a photographer. He's taking pictures. That's what photographers do.
Yeah, but
like me, if you'd like to hire me.
Do they know this is happening right now?
I mean, it's Superman, dude. I'm sure he's aware of a weirdo redhead. Anyway,
some ginger standing on the rooftop with them taking photos.
But this is a gorgeous, gorgeous piece. And it takes so much effort to build something like this. Like, even think about the fact that he drew the Jimmy sign backwards onto on the two back windows.
It's all the little touches in this. It's all the little touches that really make this piece so much fun. Because you can go through and look at everybody, and everybody's acting in their own scenes almost. Because you got Jonah Hex and Batman maybe laughing at a joke. You got Wonder Woman looking behind her shoulder, like over her shoulder at them. You got now I know Green Arrow flipping off the Green Lanterns. You have Hal Jordan and Jon Stewart, I guess. I think that's supposed to be Jon Stewart. Huh?
You have the yeah, that's Jon Stewart.
Yeah, and
there's
Black
only
Canary.
one Black Lantern. Anyway,
no, isn't there another one?
No, they have Simon Baz, but he's Muslim. He's not technically black. I'm assuming the detective that Catwoman has her hand on is the one from, because he drew Catwoman for a really long time. He wrote and drew that, and I can't remember if it was him or Jim Lee designed that costume. I think he did.
I'm not sure.
But that must be because she ended up in a relationship with a detective in that book, and I'm assuming that's who that is.
I almost think Harley Quinn was placed in last, or something was up, because it's just something like it flows with the scene. But I guess maybe they're just caught. Yeah, because the Joker's tied up in a straitjacket. She's tied up and she's looking at Batman and
Jonah Hex.
So maybe Jonah Hex tied her up. I don't know.
Possibly. But, I think they're also, she's partially there to represent, like I said, he likes to blend the different eras. If you look even at Jon Stewart and Hal Jordan is in like his original costume from his first appearance. And I mean, Jon Stewart technically is too, but Jon Stewart has a modern Green Lantern design.
Yeah.
All right. So we're gonna move on. Like that's an awesome book. I wish I owned it. Honestly, I wouldn't mind.
You can still get it. I think it's still in print. I might be wrong.
I may have to make contact with some of my local comic book stores, which you should too.
Hey, real quick news about that. Apparently,
what DC is going to be publishing?
Well, Diamond and DC apparently has found 2 new distributors for comics, and they want to start distributing in May for some new release stuff. So this might be something that you could get if it's still in print. Also, Diamond, because of that, has said, "Oh, we might have to speed up our deliveries." So
because they probably just realized, oh, Marvel is owned by Disney, DC is owned by Warner Brothers. They probably have their own methods of distribution.
Yeah.
Anyway.
So I don't want to. We'll talk about that.
Well, I hope local comic shops are able to get back going again. So the book that I'm recommending, this isn't the cover. And I because of the order I sent you the photos, the cover's going to be last. But so let me explain. This is my recommendation. This is a Darwyn Cooke book, and I assume it's a passion project. They're technically a series of graphic novels, but they're very differently styled than any comic you've ever seen before. So the Parker series was written by a guy named Donald Westlake, who was a fiction writer. I think he mostly wrote crime, and he had a pen name Richard Stark. So the book is called Richard Stark's Parker, and the specific book is The Hunter.
Yeah.
Because there's 3 books in the line. And I think he wanted to do more, and I think he died before he got to do more volumes. So everything that we've seen when we were going through that previous book shows you like what you're about to see pages from this book. I'm not going to go through too many, just a few. So basically, Parker is the story of a villain. He is not an anti-hero. He's the guy you root for. He's the protagonist, but he is a villain. He is a bad guy who just happens to be taking on other bad guys. But he's not doing out of any sense of altruism. There are innocent people in these books, but they always get hurt. Because he doesn't care. He doesn't care if you live or die. He's not a hero. But they're very compelling. They're very well written. They play like it's like the role that he was planning on drawing like his whole life. It's set in the, I want to say the 30s or the 40s. I'm not sure. Oh, you know what? No, it's set in the 60s. Set in the 60s, because they tell you. Real quick, I will mention the Parker series has been adapted at least 2 times. I think 3. I think there was one like really old adaptation. I don't know, into movies. Mel Gibson did a movie called Payback, and both Payback and a movie that excuse me.
Never heard of that one.
Yeah, a movie that Jason Statham did. I think it was just called Parker. I think.
I don't really care for Jason Statham when he tries to do American accents.
Well, he did. He was doing a country accent in one scene, and I didn't even see it. It looked horrible. It's not from the book. But both of those movies were adaptations of this book. So basically, in The Hunter, I don't want to give anything away because it's a really riveting tale. Parker is a bank robber who's very good at his job. He gets betrayed, and his take of his money is stolen, and so he goes after the people responsible and shows them what a true villain is. So looking at this first panel, like I said, Master of Shadow, and you're seeing The color is actually... So one of the interesting things about these books is each one is done in a particular color. The blue isn't the color. And the next panel, I don't know, somebody shifted the color scheme for this, but the next panels you'll see, and I'll just jump to it.
Yeah.
It's a greenish color. There's one that's, I think, red. Another one is actually done in blue. But it's really interesting what he does here. And it kind of... It even goes back to what I was saying about the Zatanna piece. Because if you look, the coloring isn't 100% on the mark. And sometimes he's not even drawing. Sometimes he's just coloring panels.
Yeah, and, you know, I was going through these, and I just have to say it again, that I still think he has that Kirby aesthetic, but he definitely has that Will Eisner way of storytelling.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to get it out right now, but he has several books teaching, you know, the art form of comics, and just the way he has these, you know, the composition, the first slide here, and then going through and looking through at the other pages, really echo how Will Eisner would break down scenes and tell a story through different time lengths, especially with the written text. There's a book he did that I think of, was it Contract with God, where you have a lot of that written text like that. It's not in a word balloon, but it's separate from the panel.
Well, part of that is because this is a combination of the novel and the graphic novel. So that text is there because this is not your typical comic book. It is literally the words of Donald Westlake as Richard Stark. I do want to point out what you'll see in these panels, and I chose these pages for different reasons, rather because they show different variations of what he does, because he does a lot of different things to tell a story here. But I do want to point out, you see in most of these panels, Parker's face is mostly in shadow, and it is specifically there to let you know he is a villain. But
it's that dramatic lighting.
I don't know how much we'll be able to see it in these pages, but if you look on that second page, if you look at Parker's hand, one thing that Parker draws a lot in the Kirby style is hands. Very blocky.
Draws in that style.
Huh?
You said Parker draws.
Oh, I'm sorry. Darwyn Cooke draws hands in the Kirby style. Very, very blocky. You can see the knuckles. The next page there's a lot of silent pages in this. Like there's no words. He's conveying, and that's where he's taking away Donald Westlake's words, which he's doing the inverse of it. Whereas Donald Westlake didn't have an artist doing these books, he conveyed everything through words. He chooses some pages where he's just like, I'm going to do the opposite. There's no dialogue here, so I'm just going to draw everything without any narration. And
it's an example of how much of what. Let me take a step back. It's a really good example of what the art form of comics can really be in terms of a storytelling device. You know, you have on the previous page, of course, you know, going through the text of Stark and everything. But this, you know, by itself, there's so much there. It plays out just like a movie would. If you even think about the camera angles and the drama that's in almost every panel.
The last thing we have is the actual cover. So the book isn't large. It's like a paperback. It's a hardcover, but it's like a paperback novel. But if you look at the cover, it tells you everything you need to know about this story. You see, it's clearly a noir story. There's a dead woman. There's pills there. He's mired in shadow. He's holding a gun. It
actually tells you about him as well.
Right.
Just the posturing and just sitting there with a dead body, you kind of get something like he either doesn't care.
Right. He's not grieving.
Yeah, he's not grieving. He's not upset. Like you know.
I mean, he is upset, but he's not crying. This isn't a man who cries. And you don't know what she is to him. I mean, you find out in the book who she is and what she is to him, but it tells you everything you need to know about what kind of ride you're in for. And this is the only thing in the book that is multiple colors. Everything else is, it's not technically grayscale because it's using a different color than gray, but everything else is a version of grayscale.
Yeah. It's a beautiful. Is this still in print? Do you know?
I don't know, but I'm sure there's copies out there. I don't think it was very popular. I just saw it and thought it was gorgeous, and we might have done it at the time. I was in a comic book reading group, like a book club, and I think we might have chosen The Hunter, and I bought Volume 2, which is called The Outfit. The only one I didn't buy is The Playground. I think it's called Playground. And they are in sequence. You want to buy The Hunter first, because if you buy The Outfit first, it's not going to make as much sense.
Yeah, I'm looking. You can definitely get The Hunter on Kindle Unlimited.
But highly recommend it. Highly recommend it.
Unfortunately, though, it looks like I went to look and see if Graphic Inks was available. It looks like it might be out of print.
Well, contact your local comic shop. See if they have a copy. They might.
They might.
Darwyn Cooke's I don't want to put them...
I bought books that are out of print from there at regular retail price, too, which is nice.
The thing about Darwyn Cooke is he's not like a Paul Pope in the sense of like being an artist, but he does fall into a weird category where I don't think everyone appreciates him. Like he's not a flashy... I mean, his art is flashy to me, but he's not flashy in the sense of pop flashy. He's not a Jim Lee or trying to think of a Joe Mad or somebody like that. So yeah, contact your local comic shops. They might have a copy. And I can't tell you how much I recommend it. Now, bear in mind, this book is work to read because it is, in part, it is a novel. There are pages where the art, I wouldn't call it simplistic, but the art isn't doing the main job. Yeah. The main job is like you reading the backstory and stuff like that. And he does.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, but he just does a lot of different things here. It's not as simple.
Yeah,
and even
there's up to four of those books because they show more that he's done with the score. The outfit, the score, and Slayground.
Slayground was the one I was thinking of. The score, huh? Okay, I don't remember that one, but there's also a Treasury edition called "The Man with No Face" or something like that, and that story is actually part of the story in the outfit, so you don't actually need that separately. You can read it in the outfit.
Yeah.
So, but I do want to say real quick, sometimes like the work of reading a story goes back to those silent panels. Like it's not simplistic. Like you're paying attention to what's going on. It's actual work to read this book. Like even with just the silent pages.
Yeah.
So, but anyway, great artist. We've been going on for a while.
I actually think we went longer than we intended.
We probably did.
So we could keep it short, and we didn't.
So Travis, tell them what you're doing, where to find you.
Actually, I do have something new that fell in my lap this week, which was even though there's a bunch of variant covers for it already. So Arc World, Devil's Due was doing another variant cover for Arc World, and the reason why is they've been multiple online Comic Cons popping up, and one apparently has gotten some traction because a lot of celebrities are doing it, and it's called Mainframe Con, and Devil's Due was approached about doing something special for the con, which is like a variant cover for that online con. Now, granted, the book unfortunately hasn't been able to be printed right now due to a lot of things going on, as we all know. Like printers can't work, and there's no distribution. However, it's more like that. I think we're taking pre-orders for this cover, so I drew a specific cover of one of the characters for this book.
All right.
The variant cover. So that's going to be coming out. I think depending on if Josh has notes, I think he wants to try and release a teaser for it today. But you can follow me at Travis_Hymel, Hymel, and that's for Twitter and Instagram. I also have a YouTube channel that you can track down if you search Travis Hymel, Hymel. I do a few different drawing videos involving me drawing homages to Marvel cards, and I'm going to also be putting some tutorials on there regarding Clip Studio Paint, which is how I make comics digitally.
So you, it's sort of the companion to what we're talking about here, so you can see art in practice, not just explained, but like how you break down a scene and stuff like that.
Yeah.
You can find me on Instagram at @buck_lightning. That's the easiest way to find me. I don't have a website quite yet. Obviously,
you just posted some new photos today, actually.
Yeah, I posted a couple photos today. And because I'm primarily a photographer, please hire me. But yeah, please like and subscribe. We're also interested in talking to other artists. If you have an art book, like, we're not looking to just promote anything. We don't want like weird interview stuff. I'm not a good interviewer.
Neither am I.
I thought you were going to say like everyone knows. But we're happy to talk to other artists. If you've got an art book that you'd like to go through, you can see the format that we're doing. And anyway, I'm not sure what we're doing next. We'll figure something out. But thank you, Travis. You know, I think this is my favorite thing that we do, honestly.
Yeah. However, I think between the two of us, I think I had the most art books.
Yeah, I might contact, see if, you know, one of our local comic shops wants to sponsor this segment, like just by donating an art book here and there.
I'll be honest, I've gotten some of my art books secondhand through different thrift stores and stuff, and they have amazing deals. One in particular was this huge Alex Ross book for $5 from my local library was selling it.
I hate Alex Ross, though. I don't want to get into it.
Don't worry, we won't cover that book. I have several others.
I think Alex Ross is overrated. It's me, sorry. But anyway, so this has been fun. Thank you, Travis.
Thank you, sir.
And hey, if nothing else, like we don't have a sign off, but read comics, support your local comic shops, support excellence. You know.
Yeah. Pre-order my new Art World cover coming out next week, maybe.
All right. Thank you, Travis.
All right. Thank you.
Good night.